What's up, guys? Season 3, Talk About It. Today we're going to be joined by Klark Brown, Restoration Advisors. Has some great advice for us.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
What's up, everyone? We're back. Season 3, Talk About It. Today we're joined by Klark Brown, Restoration Advisors. Klark, thanks so much for jumping in with us today.
Man, it's my pleasure. Really good to see you, Michael.
Yeah, it's been a while. Knowing the advice that you're going to share today, it's going to be good. I went ahead and got some extra tacos because this year's with the taco counter, we're raising money for charity. MMA and Company Cam are donating $30 for every taco, each company. So that's $60 per taco that I eat today. I'm going to try to put 10 of those away, get $600 raised for charity. Before we start with the advice that you have, Klark, tell everybody that may not be familiar with you a little bit about your background and what Restoration Advisors is. I'm going to dig into some tacos and then we'll jump into your advice.
Before we start with me, Michael, this is something we didn't talk about. The Alliance of Independent Restorers will match that $30 for every taco that you eat today. So we will contribute to that
I love it
as well.
Alliance of Independent Restorers are going to donate as well.
You can eat more than 10. You can do more than 10.
No, I only got 10, but I'm going to do 10 for sure today. So that's awesome,
Good
Klark.
deal, man. Well, I love it. I love it. Klark Brown. I live currently live in Virginia. I've lived all over. I live outside of Richmond, Virginia, beautiful country here. I have been in the disaster restoration side. So I know that Company Cam has a lot of clients for a lot of different things. I deal on the water and the fire side, more on the interior. I've spent most of my almost 20 years now doing hurricanes across the country, across the world, hurricanes, floods, fires, earthquakes, epidemics like that, and Mother Nature really wreaks havoc. So a lot of experience in large scale events, and as well as I've owned my own restoration company, smaller company. I've managed for a few people. So a scattering of different experiences. Currently am the owner of a firm. I quasi-retired from large loss about 4 years ago and started Restoration Advisors, and I'm literally just that, a coach and advisor for small and medium-sized restoration contractors and specialists, trying to whittle through this very complicated industry that's, between the documentation and the staffing and things like that. So I really enjoy this work a whole lot, and just have a couple of clients, travel pretty much a couple of weeks a month when we're not in a lockdown for the nation. I think you and I were talking about that. Our travel is really cut back. So I do a lot of on-site as well as some virtual things. And then lastly, my other passion is I'm the co-founder of an association called the Alliance of Independent Restorers, myself and John Grubb, and we have about 300 members of the same clients, restoration contractors that are just part of an association trying to unify, trying to create some standardization in what we do and be a voice in the industry that's cohesive. So got a lot of things going on, but I find time to make it work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you've done for the restoration just space as a whole has been great. And I've got to give a huge shout out to you and John and AIR as a whole. You guys really helped take me kind of under your wings when I was getting in, because I'm not a contractor, and you really helped Company Cam get into that space and learn about the space. So huge thank you for that. Your advice, and like I said, just with your background, Restoration Advisors, those kind of things, and knowing you, I knew you'd get us some good advice, and it was simple, it's to the point, but I think we can really dive into it today. And the advice really centered around being brave and being strong, sticking to your values and your beliefs and your core. go a little bit on the high level. Tell us a little bit about what you mean there, and then we'll dive into some more specific questions.
Well, it's age old. It's age old theory of you have to stand for something. You have to have a real and a virtual spine, and you have to stand for something. You have to have a place to lead from to know where you're going to lead to. And Zig Ziglar, there's millions of speakers, but there's a reason that there's been so much talk and absorbed about this subject over the last 30, 50 years in business. And you have to stand. And if you don't have core beliefs, and if you don't know what they are, work on that. It's not fun and it's not sexy, but it is what transitions people from good to great. There's just endless numbers of examples that those that don't have core beliefs and that will do anything for any dollar usually don't last long term, versus those that stand for something, collect people around them that are aligned. They usually transgressively grow and grow and grow and create more opportunity for more people and things like that. So really from a high level, just the standing for it and be brave, because you're going to be challenged. And you're not going to know how strong your beliefs are until they're challenged. You don't know how well you swim until that one time when you have to swim with your shoes on. So it's having those and then working them out like a muscle is really important.
Yeah, for sure. And Simon Sinek is one that I love on this topic, and he talks about what your why is. And I think a lot of that comes down, if you don't know your values, your beliefs, what your company stands for, I think that's so important, like you said. Simon Sinek's another one. Check him out, because he'll talk about what's your why. And if you figure out what your why is, the revenue and the profit and the money that you're making, that all just comes with it. When you figure out the why are we doing it? And so check out Simon Sinek as well. But you hit on a couple things I want to dive a little deeper on. The first is, building that team around you. How important, Klark, is it that the team around you also not only knows what the values and the beliefs and everything your company stands for, but they live that same thing? How important is that when you start building your team?
It might be the very most important thing. So many people in business often think of themselves as a solopreneur and just by themselves, and that's limiting. You're going to do great, and people struggle with that because they're like, God, I do things very well. I do this one thing. I'm a great roofer. I'm a great restorer. I'm a great carpenter. But how do you do more of that? If you know you do, and I say this all the time, Michael, if you know you do good work, why wouldn't you want more people to experience that? Because all consumers are looking for great services. So, but who you put around you, and most people watching this are probably going to have stories on both sides. A friend or a family member who they were compelled to hire, compelled to help out in a pinch, but they really weren't aligned with what they stood for, and it didn't turn out too well. And not only from a customer side, but the rest of the staff. I mean, if you aren't cohesive, it's going to show up like a scarlet letter really quick, and it's going to hurt before you know it hurts, and you're going to have to clean it up. So starting really early, another author, you talk about Simon Sinek, I've consumed everything he's written. There's a gentleman named Kerwin Ray. He's got some books, but he's really big on YouTube. And he's another one that's a lot like Simon, maybe a little more aggressive, but it's what you put up with is your responsibility. What you will tolerate in your business, you have to own that. If you're going to put up with someone that doesn't do great work, hold yourself accountable for that's you're taking it. But that's Kerwin Ray, Kerwin. But yeah, people probably, after having a good product, people, it's almost neck and neck, because without that, you're going to be limited.
Yeah, and you use the word brave in your advice that you submitted to us initially, and so let's dive even a little deeper, because maybe they do great work. The employees do great work. Everything's perfect. But maybe that's their values and how the life they're living and how they're presenting your company and your brand that doesn't align. How difficult is that sometimes to maybe cut ties with those people, but how important is it?
It is important. Again, knowing what you'll put on the repercussions from keeping someone around who's a C player will, like a cancer, will spread through. But you have to be brave. Back to brave. Bravery is a big word for a lot of people, and it's thrown around a whole lot. But I think in your personal life and your professional life right now, you have to be brave and not be consumed with and bend. You can't be super, super flexible in what you believe in, because then you believe in nothing. So be brave. You're going to be tested. And like any test, if you withstand a test and you make it through to the other side, you'll be better for it. And people will say, I remember when you were brave, and I love that about you, and I love that about your company. So bravery usually shows up after you've done it, but it's really hard to work through it.
Yeah, and I would even,
Yeah, keeping staff around. We all
Oh,
go ahead.
we cut out a little bit there. You hear me all
Did
right?
we?
I think we're good now.
I-
I think we're good
I've
now.
got some country internet. But yeah, yeah, this. But just this week, a conversation about a staff member that just drives recklessly, like really recklessly, drives a company vehicle, always getting reported, speeding, pulling a trailer, has a few wrecks. That person can't stay there once they've been coached. But they do a good job. Sells their butt off, right? Sells a lot of volume, gets great reviews. But the bad side of it is something you can't have long term. If you can't coach them into it, they have to coach them out. So that's being brave. That's something that goes against what you're chasing a number, but that number can't be what you chase.
Yeah, I think it boils down to, creating that brand, because chasing the number is what you're trying to do, but creating the brand is what's going to continue to drive success. He may be selling great today, but what does that do for your overall brand big picture if, you're not coaching and either moving on or improving what they're doing? And so I think that's very important. Awesome point. Let's take a quick break, Klark, and when we come back, I want to talk about potentially walking away from a job or passing up on work that doesn't align with your company. So let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Klark and Restoration Advisors.
Let's talk about it.
Hey guys, remember, if you do have questions, go ahead and comment below. At the end of the season, we're going to be going live with a special guest, and we'll get all those questions answered for you.
Let's talk about it.
Hey guys, we're back. Klark Brown, Restoration Advisors. We're talking about how important it is to stand firm to your beliefs, your values in your company, and knowing what those are. When we left, Klark, I wanted to come back and talk about potential, working with clients in sales, and how making sure that your values and beliefs as a company align with the customer, and making sure that you're getting into the right jobs. How important is that, and do you potentially walk away from some jobs if it's just not the right fit?
Oh, absolutely. It's hugely important, and it's something that takes a long time to learn, and even longer to get that bravery to do that, Michael. And you want customers that will tell other people about you, and that's what you want. And that's usually my first barometer. I have clients that I'm an advisor for. Will they share their successes with their colleagues and their peers, and therefore diminish how much marketing is? My work is my marketing. So, but yes, as a contractor and as a consultant, saying no and not saying no has cost me huge fortunes. Taking on work when every little center in my brain is telling me there's something wrong here, there's a red flag, but I ignored it for the revenue. I always ended up paying 10 times more for that mistake than what I made off of that job. And I think you do that enough times and you build up some scar tissue, and it becomes easier. And I love mentoring younger people who aren't there yet. When you're starting out, revenues, everything. But if you properly are onboarding your customer or your client, if you're a consultant, if you're B2B, if you're asking the right questions, diving into some history and understanding expectations, the answers will pour out, and you should start knowing that this might be a no, this might be a pass on this one.
You touched on something there where you're talking about onboarding that customer, and I think that's something I want to dive a little deeper into. How important is it in that onboarding process? Obviously, communication is going to be very important to see, get answers out of them. How important is it to even set the stage of this is what you're going to get with us. We're not going to cut corners. We're going to use the right materials. We're going to do these things. These are the beliefs and the values we have, and making sure that, hey, what we're going to do at the end of the job. There's not going to be a question of, oh, can we cut this out? How important is it to set that stage for the customer?
It's everything. And I've had a lot of success in the last 12 months of bringing this education kind of towards. I do a lot of teaching remotely in courses and classes. I have some keynotes, and the topic of onboarding has been around for a long time, but from our business, and that's the restoration, or maybe it's the roofing or the contracting world, especially when insurance is involved, it becomes a little gray on who your client really is. And sometimes it appears that the carrier, because you're trying to ultimately get the money from the insurance company, that they become your customer, but they just aren't. They're part of the triangle of the contract, and they're part of the the relationship. But you have to get with your customer, and it's setting expectations. The way I designed this program that I teach and that I think that our industry should start doing is, I first said, I'm a consumer. I buy things from people. I hire people to do things at my home or my business. And I like to know what I'm getting for the dollar that I'm spending. I like to know what I will not get and what maybe that's an extra add-on. I don't want to wait till the hardship of the expectation happens. So onboarding the customer now is, this is who we are. We have to get paid. You have an insurance policy. This is how we do it. This is how we use company cam. This is why you're going to get hundreds of photos from us, and that's going to help you settle your claim. That's what to expect. If I don't deliver on that, then that becomes on me. But you start really standing firm, your customer is going to see you as a professional and as a consistent professional. We talk all the time about Chick-fil-A. You go Chick-fil-A every single time, it's because they set the expectation and they deliver it every single time. And so onboarding your customer is essentially what I stand for, what we do, where we stop, what we won't do, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and I would assume that there's probably times where you're in the onboarding process, it may come out that this isn't the right customer for us. That's probably where it gets really difficult in terms of we've gotten down the path far enough that they were going to be our customer, but then it's, I've been here, I've done that. I know what ends up happening with these type of customers. Now is when we have to part ways. How difficult is that? You mentioned the scar tissue, and I'm sure the first time it's nearly impossible. Does it get easier for these contractors? Because especially when we're talking insurance jobs, money's involved, it's coming from different places, and people are saying to themselves, how can I get money in my pocket and get my job done? How difficult is it to cut those ties with the customer?
It is difficult, but Michael, it's like anything else. Pain has a really good way of teaching good lessons. Unless you have amnesia and short-term memory loss, things start to look familiar. So wait a minute, remember when I worked with so-and-so? Remember this client? I remember how that ended up. Let me pull back. It is really hard because, again, you have depending on how good you are with money in your business, you might not have cash reserves, and you're funding your business by every single job you sign up. And that just exposes other areas that you probably need to strengthen. You need to not be so tied to a job and tied to the type of work that you do. But yeah, it's very, very difficult early on. Again, this is a lot of this is a generational thing, Michael.
Hmm.
I'm part of it. As a younger guy, man, I was a hard hitter. My ego was driving everything I did. I've got a picture here in my office. You can't see it. It says revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. When I quit worrying about revenue and I started focusing on profit, my life changed. And I'm talking, I grew, I was happier, I was better at what I did. And
Absolutely.
I really recommend people start to chew on that a little bit, but building that scar tissue up, knowing what your time is worth. We were talking about this before. You as a leader, as a sales manager, your time is super valuable. And when you start to really calculate that you've got a client that's going to be taking a lot of your time, you're going to waste a lot of your time on trying to keep, the fire put out. You might say, I could do 3 more jobs at the same time that I'm doing this one. So maybe this is ma'am, sir, probably not a good fit for you. I've got some other recommendations. I'm too busy. I'm 6 weeks out, whatever excuse you want to make. Because I'll tell you what else is difficult, Michael, in our industry, maybe more on the restoration and roofing. There's a lot of referral partners involved. And if you have a referral partner and they recommend you, send you a referral, you don't want to turn that referral down. That starts to possibly hurt that relationship. But again, that's you having core beliefs and your referral partners knowing that this person doesn't deal with crazy. So I won't send them a referral for crazy. So there's some other complications in there too, but you just got to be aware of them, and you have to go through them. The only way to get through some pain is going through some pain. So
Absolutely. I want to kind of tie this all together, and we could go down a rabbit hole of, especially your experience with the restoration world. We could go down that MRP rabbit hole and how you start your company and you say, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to charge what's right, what's justified, and then that low hanging fruit that's just out there, and you say, well, maybe I want to jump on that. So let's go from a little more broad question, and I mean, this could be from marketing, from whatever. What recommendation do you have for these contractors when they start out? Because I think a lot of contractors start out with the best of intentions, and they say, this is what we stand for, these are our beliefs, these are our values, and then that low-hanging fruit starts popping its head up, and they say, well, maybe just this one time. What advice or recommendation would you have for staying the course and not reaching out and grabbing that low-hanging fruit? I know from a big picture play, grabbing that low-hanging fruit's not the right play, but in the moment, I think it's probably really hard. Do you have any advice for, staying the course and maybe leaving that low-hanging fruit alone?
I do, and I'm really glad you asked me that, Michael. This is probably going to be my favorite topic, and this is something that both of our industries, or all of our industries, are slow to adopt. But open your business up and find a circle of colleagues and peers. Find a mentor, find a group of contractors that are like you. I know on the roofing side, you've got Jonathan Sherwood and Paul Reed. I mean, there's some amazing guys and gals that are creating a cohesion to not let history repeat itself over and over and over again. And so if I'm a 22-year-old contractor and I'm going to start my own company, I don't know any of what you're talking about. I don't know. It sounds like it's great for me to go get this easy low-hanging fruit because I haven't heard these voices yet. But if I'm looking back on my career and I look back, and if I had people like myself and Paul Reed and Doug Quinn and some other people, where would I be now from getting that education? So my advice is, if you're starting out, strip yourself of the ego. It's gonna bring you nothing but misery. And start asking questions. Luckily, Facebook has turned into an incredible community of forums, but make sure you're using a good lens on that, because you're not always getting great advice. But really pay attention on who the real people are, who the ones that are just not in it for anybody but themselves. Connect to them, learn from them, and then do a trade. give something to get something. You probably have a superpower that they just don't have yet. And it might be marketing. Give and get and get, and you eventually build a toolbox of these tools that you've never had if you've learned it the hard way. And you can really curb your success, and you can really expedite. So my advice is find colleagues, find partners in crime, and stitch together. And that's what we've done with the Alliance. Is we've introduced young and old who both need something from the other, and everyone's eating off the buffet, and they're getting what they need, and they're getting full, and they're succeeding. And they all say, "Wish we'd done this 10 years ago." So that's my advice to anyone starting out: is latch on to some good people. Ask who are the gurus. Do you have any space for me? Can I borrow 10 minutes of your time?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's an awesome answer. I love that answer, because I even think back, as a kid growing up, if you were into sports at all, whatever sports you were in, you emulated somebody as a young kid, and you said, "I want to be Michael Jordan. I want to be Barry Sanders. I want to be Joe Montana." Whoever that was, you emulated somebody. And I think that then you get into your, like you said, that 22-year-old, and you know everything. And we were all there at one point in time. And it's such powerful advice to say, hey, who out there, who do I want my company to look like in 10 years? Whose company? Maybe I'm getting into Ludo Tile Roofing, and the king is out there. I mean, Eric Hunter is the king of Ludo Tile, and you say, what can I learn from him? And so I think that's such powerful advice. Put your ego aside, learn those things. They're going to help you, staying the course, staying firm on your values, staying firm on your beliefs. So I think that's perfect. And with that, I think that's a great end of this. I'm going to let you have one final powerful statement, Klark, but I appreciate you jumping in with us today. I did eat the 10 tacos, so that's going to be $900 with the Alliance of Independent Restorers. Anything you want to leave the audience with, Klark?
Awesome. I want to go back and go to round 2 on what we just talked about. We can go back to the word brave. To do that, to drop your ego, to trust. The trust is the big problem. Who do I trust? Who's not going to take advantage of me and my company and maybe my ignorance? But being brave enough to seek out those people, because what you'll find is those people like Paul, Jonathan, they will give you their time if you're matching them, if you're serious. They're not going to waste their time on someone who just wants to take. So be humble, be brave, approach those things, and they want their industry to be 100%. So why wouldn't they help someone like you or me if I want to make it as well? So their goal and my goals are aligned. You're talking about your core. It's just a mutual attraction. So that's I wanted to stay on that topic long enough. Super, super, super glad you had me on today. I love your series. Season 2 and 1 were great, and I love your team. So
absolutely,
been great.
Well, thanks again, Klark, for jumping on with us. Huge shout out to Air. $900. We're donating this money to charity. The best 10 tacos I've ever eaten. Klark, great time with you, and we will see you guys next week.
Let's talk about it.